Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. We are back for another episode of Not Another Male Podcast, and I'm your host, Johan Devato. And today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite topics to talk about, and that is threesomes and why everyone deserves a threesome. So this would be episode 4. That makes it even better because 4 is my favorite number. So fun facts. I was also born on the 4th in 94. So the 4 repetition is very consistent with me. So just know that whenever there comes to like episodes of 4s, I'm probably going to try to talk about things that I really, really fuck with heavy. So we're going to be talking about threesomes, right? So I guess when we're talking about threesomes, let's try to break it down and explain what a threesome is, right? So a threesome is another form of group sex, right? Group sex within itself is just sex that involves multiple people, right? So when you're talking about a threesome, keyword 3, right? It involves 3 different people. Now there are different dynamics. There are dynamics that tend to be expressed to help explain what kind of threesome that the person is seeking or wants to be involved in. And they have acronyms, right? And they're usually with M and F's, right? Still talking binaries, right? You have M, which stands for male. You have F, which stands for female. If you want to make it more gender fluid, you can have the M stand for masculine. You can have the F stand for feminine. That way it makes it even more flexible, to everybody. But usually the acronyms are put for M being male and F being female. Now, there are different types of threesome dynamics that are expressed, and they're usually expressed in acronyms that make it very translatable to anybody that you're talking to about it because it's clear, right? Like, for example, if you are like, okay, well, I want a threesome where I'm a man and I want a threesome with another man and a woman, you would refer to that as a MMF, a male, male, female threesome, It makes it really, it makes it really clear, right? So then you have the other dynamics that also come into play, right? Like FFM, which is female, female, male. So a man and 2 women, Then you have MMM, which is male, 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 3 men. You have FFF, which is female, 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 all women, So the acronyms just make it really easy, really fast, so you don't have to push past explaining 10,000 other layers to it. If you really just want to kind of give a very surface level explanation of the sexual dynamic that you're looking for, makes it much easier. I just want to put this disclaimer out there before I really get into this, is that please do not ever think about threesomes and confuse that with polyamory. Not the same thing. One is a relationship dynamic. One is a sexual dynamic. Let's not confuse those, right? So if you're hearing this and you're just like, oh yeah, so that's polyamory when you have multiple people in the same bedroom. It's not. 2 different things. Let's not confuse them, right? So let's talk about threesomes, right? So when we're talking about threesomes, if you're going to sit here and you're going to have sex with people, right? And this is just a rule that needs to stretch across the board, not just for threesomes or group sex. This also works when you're just having sex with one person too. And this should be clear, right? Is that consent is very much essential, right? You need to make sure that you and your active partner and the other party are very much on the same page. That is always important, You can't just go into it, right? I'm sure that y'all see the memes, y'all see the videos on social media all the time of these negative experiences with threesomes, and especially with the ones that are talking about women beating up the other woman in threesomes. And oftentimes these tend to go very sour. Threesomes tend to go very sour are often because consent is not fully expressed. Everyone's just going in with the excitement of doing it, and no one's knowing who wants to do what's going to happen where, and it turns into a mess. It turns into a shit show because there's no clarity, right? So it's for the best. It's for the best that you discuss with your partner and you discuss with the third party. How do y'all expect all of each other to interact when y'all get in this space? Who expects who to do what with what? Who's comfortable with what with what? Let those boundaries be known. Let them be clear so y'all can make that decision before y'all even engage in something sexual. What can happen and what cannot. That's very much important. And another part that you also have to consider too when you're talking about consent is very much giving everybody in the dynamic, all three people, the option to opt out. You cannot try to make someone stay or force someone to be involved in it just because they agreed in that moment. You can always revoke consent. Even post orgasm, you can revoke consent. Like, never let's get that confused, right? People deserve the ability to step back and leave. And, like I said, this is one of the mistakes that I've made in my experience with threesomes is that you need to really be considerate of the other party when it's happening, because when you think about it, right, whether it's sex or any kind of social interaction, emotions get involved. And I know during one of my situations in a threesome is that when one person decided to opt out and decided to step away from the interaction, me and the woman involved, we kept going, right? We kept messing around. We kept fucking, and that was just totally not the right call to just make within that moment. If you're going to engage in any form of like group sex, you need to make sure that you are being as empathetic and understanding to all parties. If someone opts out and they decide that they don't want to do it anymore, all sex needs to stop. And we need to go over what's happening. We need to be sure of what the feelings are of the other person and what they want to do. Because a lot of times, this is a lot of pressure. This makes people anxious. It makes people uncomfortable. So you have to be able to check in with people. If you are going to be selfish in the bedroom and you're just going to keep going regardless of the discomfort to either your active partner or the third party, then you shouldn't be having threesomes because you're not setting up a healthy environment. You have to show care and love for all your partners, not just your main one and not just the third party. Everyone has to give love to each other equally and care. That needs to be considered. And I'm saying that needs to be considered because there's a lot of anxiety involved in threesomes when you really think about it, right? There's anxiety, period, involved in sexual relationships, just in general, right? You have your own personal anxieties, whether it be body hair, whether it be how you smell, whether it be physical attributes, like if you have scars, if you have acne, if you have eczema, if your skin is too dry, if your skin is too moist, there are so many things that people think about when engaging in sexual dynamics, just in general, even, whether you want to talk or not, how do your moans sound? You got to think about that, right? There are so many Olympics that people often play in their heads when they're about to engage in a sexual situation. So when you add another person to that dynamic, it intensifies. And oftentimes it intensifies for everybody because when you really think about it, sex, like any other kind of performance of a social creature, you want to make sure that you can put on your best act. You want to make sure that it is a good experience and you want to be able to do things that you can do. And everyone goes through that, right? This is not it's not just a woman thing. It's not just a man thing. It's not just a you thing. Everyone experiences anxiety to some extent, and very much so, regardless of how much experience you got, whether it be in threesomes, whether you have a lot of experience or not. It's gonna still cause some anxiety. There is a new factor being brought into the bedroom that you're not familiar with, and you have to adjust to that and decide how you want to interact with it. You and your active partner and the third party, everyone has to do that. So y'all need to create some type of comfort among one another. And there are so many things that you can do. So many things, right? The list is so long, I won't be able to name them all because it's literally one of those situations where it's subjective and everyone has to figure out their own way of how they want to initiate and navigate a threesome dynamic, right? So you have options, right? Option one, and this is a universal option, right? And I don't even want to call it an option. I should call it a requirement. Have the conversation with your partner first, please. Oh my gosh, please talk to your partner first and see their ideas on it. Gauge how they feel and what they want to do. If they are even okay with it, if you can't even get the okay from your active partner, you are not finna get this other person in the bedroom. It ain't gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. So you have to talk to your partner first, right? First, right? That's the first thing. Another thing that I would consider to also be a necessary option is let all parties get to know each other. Some people don't do that. Some people just like to meet somebody at the club and just have a one night stand thing. And if you do that, that's okay. That's y'all. That's okay. But when you think about how anxiety driven the situation is and you're not under the influence of alcohol or drugs, your social inhibitions are very much not as as skewed, when you're in a more sober mindset, there's a lot of anxiety that's going to come into play, right? So it'll be in your best sense to make sure that everyone knows each other and they're familiar with each other. A lot of times in my positions, I often will end up with more female male threesomes where I'm the guy and there are two women involved. And I very much make it a priority that the two women involved know each other and get to know each other. If they don't know each other, I want them to get to know each other. I want them to talk. I want them to socialize. I want them to hang out, right? Because I want them to be familiar with each other. Because if they don't have an established social relationship and this whole situation is just happening centered around them both being familiar with me, they're not going to know how to interact with each other. And while they may not be as anxious to interact with me because they know how to tease and pleasure and do all the things to me, they're not going to know what to do if they decide that they want to interact with each other. And that is, that's serious because that can literally throw off the whole thing. That will lead to discomfort. That will lead to intimidation. That will reset all that anxiety back to 10. So let your partners get to know each other. That's important. Another thing, if you are comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it, but I can't speak for everyone, is that if you bring the third party in and the third party is supposed to be engaging with you and your partner, especially your partner, let them have a sexual relationship before it becomes all three of y'all. I don't think that everyone's just going to always be right on board and just get shit cracking just because everyone knows what they're there to do. I think it's very important that they should also know how to pleasure each other in the bedroom. If the agreement in the sexual dynamic is for them to also be involved with each other, they should get to know each other in a private setting and figure each other out and see what can happen, Because if they have that, they also have that confidence to the bedroom about what they can also do with each other. And if they have that confidence, it is even better. But once again, that's a call that you got to make. And by you, I mean all of y'all. I shouldn't have just said you like I'm talking about one person controls it. It's the thing that all of y'all have to make as a whole. Y'all have to really discuss that shit through. Because if y'all don't and they don't have that familiarity, once again, anxiety resets back to 10. So those are just some things to consider, right? You can have your partners go out on a date with themselves or all three of y'all. Y'all can go to a club together, all three of y'all or not, just the two of them. Like, you just have to make sure that no matter what happens, rapport is established between everybody. That is the important part. Everyone has rapport established and they know what they're going to do when the day comes that shit happens. It's not uncommon for in threesomes or group sex situations that, sometimes people do like to be under the influence a little bit. Some people do like to sip a little bit. Some people do like to smoke a little bit. Some people do like that because it just helps lower that anxiety when you do so. While I'm very much against the whole concept of messing with someone, especially when they're obviously fucked up or messed up, on anything, whether it be drugs or alcohol, like you definitely should not mess with someone if it's very clear they are way too under the influence. Let's be clear about that, right? But we also need to be honest with the fact, too, that it is like people very much do get involved in alcohol and or drugs as a means of helping calm their own anxiety to get engaged in the things that they want to do. And excuse me, while that is a call for the party who decides that if they want to get involved and use those kind of things to do the dynamic, while yes, it's their call for what they want to do with that, y'all have to also be the ones to assess if they are in the correct headspace to do so. Personally, if I feel that someone is not in the right headspace, it's just better for it not to happen, no matter how much they say that they're on board. Because once again, when you do things with people in those situations, even though you might have consent in that moment, it can turn very messy. So once again, it's about having clarity between all your partners about what's going to happen. If y'all all agree that y'all going to get drunk and stuff before y'all get involved in it, okay, y'all all agree, y'all all do that. Still make sure that you are being clear about what's happening. Make sure that you're still checking on the moods and emotions of everyone involved, beginning, during, and after. Very, very important. Very important, seriously, because anxiety plays a big factor in any kind of sexual dynamic, and we very much need to be loving, caring, and patient with our partners, and we need to be able to empathize or just sympathize when things don't go the right way, because the goal that you want to have in any sexual dynamic is that you want everyone to feel safe, protected, and free to be who they are. That's important. So, let's talk about people interacting with each other, right? Because it is so often, and I really feel like it's so often, right? When we even look on social media and we see these discussions, right? It's a lot of times we see men say that men want to have threesomes, but they want it to only be with two women. And they don't want another man in the bedroom because they don't want to look at another man or see another man. Or they don't want another man fucking a woman. I really feel like it's more to it than just that. And I'm okay with being wrong about this, and I ain't got no quips about it. But I often think the expectation, especially with people who do not have a lot of education in sexual dynamics, is that they have the expectation that when a threesome is requested with another party being involved, that everyone has to be sexual with everybody. And you don't have to do that, right? Just because you might be comfortable having sex with both parties, or because your partner might be comfortable having sex with both parties, that does not mean that everyone needs to have sex with everyone. And I really think that that's the expectation, because when you think about how men often talk about MFF, or male, female threesomes, it is often that the women are involved with the women and they're also both involved with the guy. So it would make sense then that when men hear a woman present to them that it's like, I want to have another man in the bedroom, they're going to have the expectation set in their head that it's like, oh, I got to deal with you and this guy. And it's like, you don't. You very much don't. In threesomes, everyone does not have to interact with everybody. Let's make that very clear. They don't, right? I've definitely had threesome dynamics, especially like back in college. I had a threesome dynamic where, majority of the interaction was between the two women, and they were the ones that were honestly doing the most involvement with each other. I really didn't have much involvement with the both of them at that time. Like, yes, like there were things that like I did with them, but that dynamic was really set that I'm more of supposed to be involved with this one person, and their focus is to be involved with the other person and me at the same time. Like, everyone didn't have to have everybody. And that's not how it went, The two women were more involved with each other, and then I was just honestly kind of like double dutching in the situation. I hopped in, I hopped out, I hokey pokeyed, and then I fell asleep because I was blackout. So, very big rule of thumb. Don't have sex if you're crossfaded and blacked out, because you won't remember shit. And I definitely didn't remember the majority of that night. But that's very much true to the dynamic that when you discuss these things out with your partners, right? If your partner, and we're talking about for women, right? If you want to suggest to your active partner, if it's a man, right, that you want to have this male, female threesome, you want another man in the bedroom. Men, you have to really understand that just because she would like another man in the bedroom, that does not mean that you have to be intimate with that guy. You don't have to do anything with him if you don't want to. Y'all don't have to. Y'all don't have to interact with each other, period. And y'all know that. It's very clear, right? And I say this especially because it's like, when we talk about trains, right? Trains. Because for some odd reason, when you talk about two men and a woman having sex together, it's not considered a threesome, but it's considered a train. The context is very much what changes men's comfort and whether they want to engage in it or not. If they consider it all like, And I mean, like, we just gonna be honest about like the whole concept of train too. It's very much like rooted in misogyny. Okay, like, can we talk about that? Like, it's rooted in misogyny and the objectification of the woman there, because there's no respect given to the woman. It's like she's a hoe, she a slut, and we just off in a bag on her. Like, like it's used in a context where it's like, oh, she's being passed around and she ain't nothing important, so that's why we can do it, and they don't consider it to be that. But if you can have the comfort being with your bros, and you could be comfortable with your bro getting his dick sucked while you fucking this shorty, or you hitting her from the back, or a missionary, or whatever, and then y'all can switch, and that's cool. That's the same concept. Like, niggas can say all day a train and a threesome are different. They're fucking not different. They're not different at all. That's still a threesome, bro. It's three people having sex. That's still a threesome. The only difference between what you consider a threesome and what you consider a train is the fact that the woman involved you actually see as a person. You give a personality and you give care to this person. You're not doing that in the situation of a train. And that's why you kind of look at it that way often. You look at it in a train like, this is a walking fleshlight that me and my bros sharing, And I ain't finna say pause to none of that shit, because it's like, that's really what it is often. That's why that argument always stays. But it's just like, you don't have to be sexual with the other guy. The same rule applies to anyone, whether it's a male dynamic, or it's a female dynamic, or it's a male female dynamic. Everyone doesn't have to be involved with everybody. It can be two people just pleasuring one person, and that is also an acceptable threesome. That's also okay. Or it can be one person pleasuring two people at the same time, and that's still okay. We really need to let go of this idea that we need to give different terms or different understandings to a particular sexual dynamic as a means to whether it is to justify our own sexuality or justify our masculinity or femininity. Like, threesomes are here because it's just another form of how humans like to explore sexual potential. It's supposed to be about having fun and trying something new, not about trying to prove yourself, And it's just like, that is a big part of it, right? That anxiety component comes back again, right? Because there is so much, and I hear this a lot more from men than I hear from women, but both parties experience it, is that there is this desire often in threesomes for competition. The main partner always wants to be better than the third party. The main partner wants to be treated better than the third party. And that is a mentality that is, I'm going to be honest, very unhealthy. Excuse me. You shouldn't want to come into a sexual dynamic to prove who you better than. The train is also going by, and that's never going to change. But you should never spend your time trying to prove who you're better than, or who you can fuck better than, or who you can pleasure better. Once again, when that discomfort happens, step back out of the sexual dynamic, and everyone needs to stop. Make a call for things to stop and express that discomfort. It's not as easy when you're right there in the moment because there are so many emotions involved, but you really got to take that conscious mind. Make that a very clear thing that everyone can do before it starts, that if someone is feeling uncomfortable, they can make the call for things to stop. Make that clear, because we can't keep going through these situations of people getting upset and hurt and frustrated that people are messing with other people, because no one's talking about it. No one's talking about it. And y'all need to talk it through. So that if you don't want so-and-so interacting with so-and-so, make it clear. If you're not comfortable seeing so-and-so in this sense, make it clear. Find out what works. But I feel like everyone needs to give everybody the opportunity to have some fun. I really find it unfair for men to constantly push for these female threesomes and then throw a whole temper tantrum when the request is for another man to be brought into the bedroom, because you don't see an issue when it's another woman there, because you have another opportunity to sleep with someone else, but you don't want to see that for your partner. That's selfish. And once again, and I will say that again, you shouldn't be having threesomes if you want to be selfish. Know what your comfort zones is. If you're going to be selfish like that, that's very much a boundary of your own, but do not sit there and try to ask for something that you can't handle in reciprocation if the cards get flipped. Honestly. Like, I can't sit here and keep having these threesomes where I have two women in my bed with me and then sit there and throw a fit when one of my partners is like, can I bring a guy into the bedroom? Fuck yeah, you can bring another nigga into the bedroom. Go ahead. Me and that nigga ain't gonna do shit together. We might have a casual conversation. But it's like, me and him ain't gonna do nothing. Like, we ain't gonna do nothing sexual, and that's okay. That's okay, Because we're both here for the pleasure of you. You are the focus of this pleasure center. Our focus is on you. So I have nothing to get mad about. He has nothing to get mad about. You have nothing to get mad about, because we're all here having fun, because we're very much talking it through and having that understanding that this is what it's going to be. It's about equity, right? It's not even about equality necessarily. It's about equity in the bedroom, It's about understanding that the kind of things that you want your partner to do, you got to also have some form of you that is also willing to give too. You just can't give and you just can't take and you don't want to give back. You got to be able to have the same fun. You got to be able to do the same shit. You got to be able to have that flexibility with your partner, because it's all about equity, And if your partner ain't tripping about it, and you a man and your partner, and she's like, I only want to deal with women in a threesome context, then cool. You win, game over, nothing to worry about. But you can't get upset when your partner asks for the same thing. It's not like this is going to be a situation that's going to hang over your head forever. And it's not like it's going to be something that changes whether you're a man or not, if you're masculine or not, or that if you a real nigga or not. Like, it's just about having fun. Sex is about having fun. It's about exploring, practicing, researching, and just doing and learning different things. Let's not take this time to try to console our egos. Take your ego out of the equation. If you can't take your ego out of it, you don't need a threesome. If you can't take your ego out of it, you don't need to be having group sex with anybody, because it's gonna get hurt if things don't go your way. And I'm saying that as someone who has had threesomes with another man being involved. It's been a man, a woman, and another man. And I've watched niggas get competitive and get angry and get mad at me and want to beat my ass. When I'm like, we here for the same woman. Why you tripping? You fuck her and so do I. Why are you tripping? But it's because egos aren't taken out of the equation. It's because of that competitive need to want to do better than the other person. You fucking her better than I am. She ain't never moan like that with me. She ain't never do all this with me. Man, you gotta let that shit go. People gonna moan. If they're experiencing pleasure, they're gonna moan. If the pleasure is really nice, they're gonna moan even louder. The body is going to reflect what they enjoy. What? Like, that's what it is. Like, you can't sit there and want your partner to be like, oh, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, this is mid. And then when you jump in, they're like, the greatest thing in the world, hallelujah. Like, you can't sit there and want the whole dynamic to just go your way, because if you, once again, want things to just be where your partner is only worshiping and wanting you, and they're treating this other person like a non-factor, it's not a threesome, it's being selfish, and you just invited this other person in here, once again, to stroke an ego. You're not doing anything constructive. So if you really want to sit there and you want to get involved in threesomes, you have to take your ego out of the equation. And you have to realize that you are here to have a good time. You're not here to be better than anybody. You're not here to beat anybody. That goes for men and women both. Y'all got to let that shit go. And if you feel like you can't let it go and you can't handle it, don't have a threesome. Save yourself the heartache and save your partners an awkward night. I very much encourage people to try. I think people should try group sex all the time. I think it's fun. I think it's really nice. But if that's something that you're not comfortable with, acknowledge that. Or if you gave it a shot and realized you're not comfortable with it, acknowledge that. Things don't have to always be negative situations. You don't have to beat up nobody. You don't have to fight nobody. You don't have to harm nobody. And that's the kind of shit that I had to make clear to the niggas that would get upset with me. That is like, you don't have to get mad at me. You don't have to beat my ass. You ain't got to sit there and want to have all this beef with me and want all this smoke with me because, one, I like to fight. So it's just like, don't bring that to me because it's like, because I'm going to bring the energy back to you. If you want to swing, I'm going to swing back. Like, what's up? One, two, it don't ever got to come to that to begin with. We don't have to box. We don't have to fight. We ain't got to get into it about nothing. Ladies, you don't have to sit here and get up and start swinging on that shorty and shit because ain't none of that shit worth it. Take your ego out of the equation and have fun. Sorry, I got very passionate about that. But let's still continue things, right? So I very much also feel like, we're also talking about doing threesomes. When we're involved in threesomes, I very much do advocate that their needs, or not that their needs, but I feel like there very much is involved some excitement of voyeurism and exhibitionism. And it can be on any party. There can be people there, like parties can have a voyeuristic fetish. People can have an exhibitionist fetish. And let me just be clear about what they are if you're not sure. So when we're talking about voyeurism. Voyeur means to watch. So if you have a voyeurism kink, you get excited from watching your partner in pleasure, whether that's you pleasuring your partner or someone else pleasuring your partner. It's voyeurism. You like to watch, And when it comes to exhibitionism, you like to be the person who is doing something sexual for the sexual gratification of your partner. So you're like the person that's showing off, right? You're the person that's getting fucked and watching your partner get off to it. Or you're the person that's masturbating and your partner's getting excited about it. Or you're the person that wants to wear the trench coat with nothing under it and then flash your partner when y'all out in public or something like that. Like, that's exhibitionism. So I think that there needs to be some element of that in these sexual dynamics. If you really want to enjoy a threesome to its best extent, you have to enjoy seeing your partner in pleasure, and being given pleasure, if you want to be on that part of it. And you also have to enjoy receiving pleasure too and letting your partner also enjoy seeing you that way too. If you can sit there and have it, especially in threesomes, I very much do think that being verbal is very much important, especially in threesome situations. Giving the affirmations to your partner and the third party about how good they're doing, how nice everything looks, how fun it is, how much you're enjoying yourself. Do that. Or telling your partner, who is the person who's watching the voyeur, you look so good when you're watching me do this and this and this and this. Giving affirming language to let people know that we're all having fun here, we're enjoying it. So I very much advocate that there needs to be some form of a voyeurism or an exhibitionism kink involved in these situations, so it becomes more fun. Because if you don't like seeing your partner have sex with other people, you're not going to like a threesome. If you do not like being seen when you are having sex, you're going to have a harder time having a threesome, unless y'all do it in the dark. Then it works for voyeurs and it works for exhibitionists. But it's just like, if it's pitch black dark and nobody knows what's happening, it's just like, unless y'all all agree that everybody's going to fuck on everybody, it's very easy for things to get very confusing very fast. That's all I'm saying. And then somebody's going to get upset. Somebody's going to get touched on while you go here, hey, what you doing? Then it... Let's not get into all that, okay? Let's not do that. But let's say you're either a new couple, right? Or you're an established couple and you want to try threesomes, right? I very much think a good place to start are trying what I like to call pseudo threesomes. So pseudo threesomes, the word pseudo means fake. If you ever heard the word pseudonym, fake name. So pseudo threesome is a fake threesome. Excuse me again. You can very much have pseudo threesomes in a myriad of ways. One of the most, I feel like, obvious ways about having a pseudo threesome is bringing different toys into the bedroom, whatever you consider those toys to be. If you want to bring fleshlights in, if you want to bring dildos in, vibrators, whatever, bring things involved into the sexual dynamic that helps extend the reality that you have another person there. A good example, and maybe this doesn't work for everybody, but something that I like to do with my partners, right, is that when I'm fucking them, to help them simulate the idea of a threesome, is that with the women that I fuck, not all of them, whoever's into it, I like to put my fingers in their mouth. And while, sucking off fingers in itself is its own fetish, which is entirely cool. I like to do that because I want them to very much have the image in their head of like, if another person was here, I want to be able to enjoy sexually engaging with pleasuring them in this sense while this is also happening to me. You get multiple stimulations at once. And that's what honestly makes group sex so cool, is that you get multiple stimulations at once. So bring things into the bedroom. One of the things that I'm actually considering buying is that I very much want one of those little like suction dildos that you can put on the walls and shit, and like in the shower and shit. Because for a long time, like since I was like 19, I've always wanted to do this pseudo threesome dynamic with one of my partners. Well, my current partner, because I only have a girlfriend right now. But I've always wanted to do it where, we take the dildo. We put that motherfucker to the wall, and she's going to fuck the dildo while she sucks my dick, And it's just to help simulate that idea, that feeling of having another person involved and getting comfortable with what that would feel like. Of course, it's not going to be exactly like that because a human body is not the same as a stationary dildo. A human body is not the same as a fleshlight. They're not the same. But they are very helpful with just working up to that comfort. If you can be comfortable with toys in the bedroom, you can work up to the comfort of having another person involved. Because once again, just as you bring toys to the bedroom for the sake of satisfying your partner, it is the same concept with a threesome. You're bringing another person in for the sake of the pleasure and satisfaction of your partner. And that's important. That's very important, like you gotta, that helps. It really helps with just bringing comfort, to you both. And, it goes how it needs to go. Y'all try it out. If you feel like it feels uncomfortable, you feel like it's overwhelming, you feel overstimulated by the situation, no matter which side of it you're on, let it be known and work on what can happen and what can't happen, You got people out there that love the idea of sucking dick and getting fucked at the same time. You have people that love the idea of having two dicks inside of them at the same time. You have people who don't like the idea at all. I feel like that's too much. You got to find out what works. Because every threesomes, and I'm going to just be honest, threesomes are not like the threesomes you see in pornography. You can replicate some of the positions, which is cool. But threesomes and porn are not the same as what happens in reality, So you got to very much make sure that you also are taking that idealized version of what a threesome is like outside of your head and realize that in this situation, you have 3 people and y'all are just trying to figure out how each other work in this new type of sexual dynamic. And y'all got to work that shit through. And that's really important. But let's just be real about it too. Is like I would say, do not let bad experiences deter you from trying threesomes or group sex again. And I say that only if you have the interest in trying again. If you feel like, nah, I ain't doing it and don't want to touch it, nah, that's your boundary and you're free to have it. But if you have some desire to want to try and to want to do it, I would say don't let those bad experiences stop you. Because even in one-on-one sexual situations, you're going to have good sexual experiences, you're going to have bad ones. And if you know that, are you going to just stop having sex altogether because you had a bad experience? You may not. You might have sexual repulsion. You may not, and that's okay. But, a lot of times, people make the step to try again. And the same thing can work with threesomes and group sex again. You can always try again and see what happens and see how it works. And maybe, and not even maybe, but hopefully you have a healthier dynamic that time where all parties will communicate and try shit with each other. And y'all can do it in patience and in slow steps. Because, I'm just saying, as a person who's had a decent amount of threesomes in my life, is that I've seen the both good and bad of the situation, I've seen threesomes get really ugly. you know, um, I've had threesomes that went beautifully and were very much very fun and were attempted multiple times again because of how fun they were. So we very much just got to be sure about those kind of things when we're talking about them and how they work and what they do. Um, if you want to get involved and do more extra things, like you want to bring like floggers and blindfolds, like make fantasies happen, I definitely encourage that. One of my fantasies, and I'm definitely going to enjoy this shit when it happens one day, is that I want my partner, right? I want her to be blindfolded. I want her to be blindfolded, and whether it's another woman or whether it's another guy, it's her call, right? I ain't tripping. It's her call. I want her to be blindfolded. And, if I even really want to get, really into it, because I have some over-the-door handcuffs, maybe even cuff her to the door. But I very much want it to be where she is blindfolded and she just kind of just has to feel everything, right? That sensory play. She just has to feel the hands on her. She just has to feel everything that's touching her and everything that's happening. If toys are going to be used, especially the trusty wand, like I want her to just be able to feel and listen, talking dirty in her ear, having both parties do that, like saying things that just really excite her and get her going. Like, I really want those kind of things to be given to my partner, because I think that that would be really fun, super cool, and she would have an absolute blast. I don't see why not, You can make threesomes as fun as you want to. Bring some role play into there. Bring some fantasy plays into there, Do some things that are just very much excitable, Uh, Cause it's you have one life to live, and I feel like when you just have one life to live, you should try to make as much fun as you can. It's good to step out of your comfort zone and try new things, and I very much encourage that with people. Step out and try new things. Do something that you ain't never done before, because you never know what it might unlock inside of you. You never know what kinks that you might get to, and I'm just saying that it's like real shit. Like you never know. And I don't want to start talking about what kinks I discovered about myself because of the different partners that I've had, and that is a totally another story for a totally different day. But I very much have the advocacy that threesomes are for everybody. Everyone deserves it, but only if you want to do it. But I think everybody should do it. I've had so many talks with very traditionally monogamous people. Let me be clear, right? Because I know y'all know I'm non-monogamous, but let me be clear, right? I've had a lot of talks with monogamous people, very traditionally monogamous people who have told me, and these are often women, whether they be at my workplace or just casual outings or even at the club. Shout out to Tilly's because that's my spot, and I ain't been there in a few weeks because I've been sad, but shout out to Tilly's, bro. But I very much hear women discuss with me often while they're married or in fully committed relationships how they have this desire to want to have a threesome or to want to have a foursome, even do swingers type activity. Like they express it so often. What they want to do, what they want to try, what they want to experience. Like it be out there. It's really out there, like heavy, that people really want to try things that are just different sexually exciting things. Nobody wants to do the same cut and dry missionary doggy style every day. Nobody does. At some point, there needs to be something that flips it up, spices it up, changes it up, makes it different. And I see it all the time, and I ain't even gonna I ain't even gonna trip about it, but as someone who's very much seen it happen, I very much had women, ask me if I could be involved, if their other partner gives the okay. The only reason why oftentimes they get turned down is because the assumption is put into place that I'm bisexual, and they think that they either want me to bottom or they want me to top they nigga while they nigga fucks them. And I just have to be straightforward with them, and it's like, I get it. My expressions of how I do things are often very fluid in gender because I don't really care much about being presented as masculine or feminine. I just like to do what works for me. But I don't have an attraction to men, and I'm not going to sit there and give that false hope for that to happen. I really don't want to do that. I don't want to set nobody off. I don't. Can there be negotiations about what kind of things may or may not be able to happen? Of course, like I try to leave myself as open to as many things that can happen. I have one life. Let me have my fun. But I very much know that within my body that men do not sexually excite me. And that tends to shut down a lot of those other threesome opportunities that I've had given to me because that's not for me. But I very much have, I have guy friends. I know niggas. Like, I got homies that are bisexual that very much would be like, I'm down to get up in that and do that. Like, so if you want me to direct you to these niggas, ain't no problem. Ain't no problem, but I know for me, like, it doesn't work that way. But women very much do love to have these talks and engagements about practicing sexual dynamics that are very much just outside of the casual monogamous context. Women are curious. And I hope that we really get to understand that it's like men are not the only ones who are very sexual and want to do sex all the time. Women are just as sexual. And women want to make it happen. Women want to have fun and they want to do shit too. And I'm very much going to leave this topic for like a podcast about this whole concept that cheating is different because women are more emotional and men are more primal in it. It's just not true. Even in sexual situations, everyone just wants to have fun. It's not as true as we want to make it seem. So with that, I do want to leave y'all to just have a wonderful day. Enjoy yourselves. If you are outside driving, if you are taking the bus, if you are on the train, if you are a bus driver driving the train made of buses, we can get as meta as we want to at this. If you're walking outside, walking your dog or whatever, definitely enjoy the podcast and have a good time. I will definitely have my next upload on Saturday as well. We're going to see what the topics are going to be and who's going to come on if I get to have another guest or not. We will see. But y'all take care and y'all have a great day. It's all love. Respect your partners, respect yourself, and very much know that everyone deserves to have fun. Don't try to restrict anybody because of something you would not do. Everyone deserves to have fun. Live your life, be happy, and let people do theirs. Thank you.